with a guy who's got probably over 25 plus years of shaping experience. He's got his own brand, which I think he started, must be old. What's that? 10, 15, 20? God, I don't know how many years ago. We're going to ask him anyway. We've got Patrik Diethelm in the house. I say in the house, he's literally only just joined us. So hopefully everything is working. Is he there? It's gone black. Why is it gone black? Patrik, hello.
I don't know. You do everything.
I don't know. Can you hear him? That's the question. I'm going to try and just remove him and add him again. He was in there before. Oh my God, that's the beauty of live TV.
I didn't do anything.
No. Okay. Well, I am. I've got to be honest. I've not had that before where this has happened. Patrik is there.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear
test.
me?
It was working. We're now. Let me know if you can hear him. That would be good. If anyone can comment if you can hear Patrik, and we'll try and work out why he's not actually. Maybe you can just log back in, Patrik. Maybe just take yourself out and put yourself back in, because something has gone wrong. We'll see if we can get him back. But, I mean, hopefully you can hear him. Yeah, we can hear him. Okay, so that's a good start. We can hear him. I've just heard Primo say you can hear him. Yes, they can hear. So hopefully we get him back in. In the test, it was working great. Okay. Well, he's not the prettiest, is he? So maybe it's not so bad if we don't see him. Well, we'll have to see. Well, like I said, we'll try and get him back in. So the idea of this is you guys at home get asked the questions. We put them to Patrik. He answers them. I've got a few questions of my own, but hopefully I'm going to get loads of stuff from you guys. Right. There he is. Oh, God. Let's put the back.
I didn't do anything.
He's here. He's here. So firstly, for people who don't know you, which there's probably not that many, but just give us a little bit of an introduction of, you know, from where you came from to what you're doing now in not Patrik terms, in a normal person's short terms.
Yeah, well, I'm Patrik Diethelm. I'm from Switzerland, and I don't know, windsurfing was my passion since a long time. I started to compete in, don't even remember when, 1990 something, and didn't like my production boards, and started shaping my own boards, and came into shaping. Then got the offer from F2 to shape for them. Back then was the biggest brand. So shaped for them for like, I think like 10 years, 9, 10 years. And then after that started our own brand. And that's ever since. So 2010, we started our own brand. Here I am. Is this short enough?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that's good. That's perfect. I mean, like I said, most people would know you. You started off, like you say, with F2. That was kind of your foot in the door. And then there was one thing led to another, and you started Patrik Boards in 2010, was it?
Yep. Exactly.
2010. So you've got a fair bit of experience. So the idea of this podcast, we're going to take questions from all the guys at home. We've had a few people on Instagram leaving questions. I've got a few. And we're just going to go through them, and we're going to use your wealth of knowledge and information. And it might not all be about Patrik Boards. It can be just about shaping in general. It could be that someone's going to shape their board for the first time and they want a bit of advice. It literally could be anything. All right, let's have a look. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's have a look at a few questions. We've got so many. I'm just going to look through. What is Patrik's core target group? Advanced sailors, average recreational free riders. Who do you shape? I mean, it's such a difficult. I was looking at your website. You've got so many boards.
Yeah, we have everything, and we do not have a target group. Our target group is windsurfing, and not anymore. It's even winging now and foiling and everything. So it's more now, and it's just, and it's not like I put more effort in developing something than something else. I mean, if Tina is there, he confirmed. I actually have to do now the beginner sales. And I don't know, I feel like it's the hardest part almost, because you have to take care of the money, the costs and the materials and the cheap materials, they're all stretchy, and you're like, and that is almost the biggest challenge. But with boards, same thing. I put so much effort in free ride boards as I put into slalom boards. Actually, almost more, because slalom was always a bit my thing, and speed, and I know what I want. So when it comes to free ride, it's like, I'm not a free rider anymore. Happens 20 years ago or even more. So I need to get some free riders and then find out what they need. But for them, again, it's hard to communicate what they want, because they are not shapers and they're not at the level. So it's a lot of talking, video, filming, everything, but we don't really have a target group.
No, but that's interesting. Like, so what do you know, what we're going to do is we're going to take questions in, and then we're just going to go and sort of go in different directions. But listening to you there, do you have a favorite type of board to shape? Do you look forward to, like, oh, the speed boards or the wave boards, or let's say something like that? Is there something that you really like because it's more personal?
I think what's when we talk about free ride, for example, the free rider is always similar, because he goes through that stage. And so, for example, somebody's a beginner. He's not the beginner for the rest of his life. He's a beginner for a certain time, and then he comes to the next level, and then to the next, and wherever he's happy there, he's going to stay. While, for example, slalom is changing all the time. You're at that level, but competition, they change. Now, for example, with the foil, we also need to think about different boards with the fin, because in light wind, pretty much we don't need any light wind slalom boards with the fin anymore. So do we need to change sizes, because to which strength and in which conditions are they using foil, and when do they start using the fins, so which boards, which wind, which conditions. So it's changing again, while in free ride, for example, a free ride is still the free ride. Do you know what I mean? You can say, okay, I want a free ride which is planing a bit better and just cruising like classic shape, or I want a free ride which is, let's say, a bit more playful. So but as a brand, you more or less choose a little bit your range, and you stay. I could make 5 different free ride board, range, but it's not possible. After we have like 100 boards in the range, and then our partners going to go crazy. So I think every brand has different free ride boards, and that's why it's also a little bit in the Surf magazine when they do the tests. It's not necessarily which one is the winner, because it's like in slalom boards. Which one is the best slalom board? Is it the fast one, or is it the one which jibes really good? If you talk to Julien Quentel, he will choose the one which jibes good, because he could come dead last to the first mark, comes out first mark in second, and that's just the jibe. While another one maybe prefers the top speed, because I don't know, maybe he doesn't feel so confident in the jibes, and he always likes to be ahead of the pack. So, but again, what you choose for a brand. So
I think that's a really valid point. Like here at Windsurfing.TV, we had thought about doing testing. Testing is so dangerous, for want of a better word, because it's not, the outcome has to basically tell you what that board can do for what type of rider, not that it's the best board. Because the best board for me, I've had it before where I've loved a board and I've got a friend on it, hates it. I've had another friend come to me with this bend, you've got to try this bend. I can't even bottom turn the bloody thing.
And it depends where. Just go back to the free ride board. Free ride board at Lake Garda is a totally different free ride board than here in Perth at the river. Because at Lake Garda, you come through the middle of the lake and you always have to point upwind, always. And you know how it is. At the river, you never point upwind.
Yeah.
And it's fresh water, salt water, it's different density, different chop, different everything. So again, and also, as you say, what type of rider? Is he tall and light or heavy, or it's not easy.
Is,
And
is that something, just going to butt in, is that something you as a shaper, obviously you're making production boards, so, you know, is it custom versus production boards? If someone comes to you, is that something you offer as a brand, like a personal sort of tailored thing? They say, okay, Patrik, I'm 6'2", or, you know, I don't know. Is that something that happens?
I did a lot, but I didn't do the last 2 or even almost 3 years now because of no more traveling, no more. It's hard. It's really hard because also the productions, you know, like normally when you either you shape by hand, but normally I did everything in Thailand. I had a couple workers, so I don't really laminate. I mean, I have another guy helps me who checks if they laminate and correctly and put enough resin and put the inserts and all that stuff. But if you can also send a file and just let them do it in a 3D shape, you know, like CNC milling.
Yeah.
But the tricky part is not even the shape like the styrofoam itself. The hardest part in boards is really whatever comes after. You can have the best on the tenth of a mil shaped perfect board. When you start vacuum bagging and put PVC and everything and bending and like you have this, imagine this, you as a wave sailor, you know how it is. You have this beautiful, nice, peeny, thin tail. You're like, woo! And then you put 5 boxes in. You take the router, literally, you start routing and then like, where's the tail? Because there are massive holes everywhere. And then where the rail is, everything is so thin because it's cut off. And then everything starts to bend when you start pushing the fin boxes in. And that's the hard part after to get it all back to how you shaped it. And that's so much work of micro ballooning, sanding, and yeah.
Out of interest, is there a certain way you design boards for production? Because I do remember you talking to you years ago in Nalu, and I remember you saying, "Well, we actually would do that, but for the production board manufacturers to replicate it consistently, it's not worth the risk because they could mess that up." Does that sound familiar?
Correct. You know, when you're shaping, sometimes you don't know what to do and you just do something and you try. And sometimes you get lucky. And I well remember I made that speedboard and it was this complicated shape. I don't even remember. I think it was a double concave in the front with a little bit of V, came into a flat and then into a monoconcave. But with the monoconcave, you have to give actually a little bit of a rocker because otherwise, because the outline closes and the monoconcave closes as well, like almost like a spoon. You know what I mean? So you have the water running against it. So you need to bring it up and start. And that board was so magic. But when I looked at that board, I'm like, there's no way they're gonna get this right in production because you have a flat is a flat. You have your straight edge, you put it there, it's flat, there is no light coming under, it's flat. You have a flat V, you measure one side flat, other side flat, and you measure how much is it together, and that's it. But if in a monoconcave, for example, you can have a monoconcave, just a simple, so let's say this is a monoconcave, you can have a monoconcave like this, or the other way around. So just like, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
So if you put the straight edge here, so let's say the red one is the straight edge, and you measure in the middle 2 mil, you measure in the middle 2 mil. So if you look at this, so here, the blue one is the concave, in the middle, 2 mil. The other one is 2 mil as well.
So for anyone listening onto the audio only after this, you won't have seen what he's just drawn, but yeah, you can, the measurements of a curve can be confusing to someone who is, you know, who's trying to replicate.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you do it every day, then when you go with the straight edge, you can see the light if it's symmetric. And of course, you can also measure. But again, if you make a monoconcave, trust me, you can, I mean, most double concaves, they're not that deep. Double concaves on a slalom board around in a tail is 0.5 mil per side. Okay. 0.5.
Jeez.
So, I mean, even 0.5 to shape it and to get it right, you have it in the styrofoam, and then you put the 3 mil PVC plate on top with reinforcements, carbon and whatever, and everywhere where you have a reinforcement, there's a little step. That's already 0.3. So to get that right,
you're designing stuff with that in mind. You know,
exactly.
Like,
yeah. I always try. I mean, obviously, when you have a shape which works really well, and even if it's a monoconcave and it's difficult to replicate, then of course we keep going and try to have a board which is similar, but much easier to reproduce. And so, for example, the monoconcave with the slalom boards on our big ones, we have the monoconcave is just giving you that lift, and it's just so nice. The thing is, when you put 3 mil lift, 3 mil monoconcave, you feel a lot of lift, but you feel like you don't get more speed. It feels nice. It feels like you're higher on the water, but you're actually almost slower. The thing is, because you're not sailing straight, you're sailing a little bit sideways. Because it's a monoconcave, then the leeward rail starts to dig in and slow you down. So that's why then you go back to like 1.5 mil monoconcave, which has this perfect lift. The rail sinks a little bit, but doesn't slow you down too much. And you still have this nice lift and early planing. And to be able to have it easier in production, I just made an invert V. Means it's just 2 flat sides. So not the V going up, the V going in.
So like a monoconcave.
So that's
easier to measure.
Well, then you have. So that will be that one then, right?
Yeah.
So like this, you also have 2 mil, and then you have 2 flat sides. So you put the straight edge on the left side, flat, left, right side, flat, in the middle, check, 2 mil, done, finished. So yes, absolutely, it is. But again, what are you achieving? What are you trying to look for? You know, when you shape a board. I mean, that extra tiny bit of top speed, but the shape is so complicated and they cannot really reproduce it. So you need to get 5 boards out of production to really find the one which works. It's just not worth it, because one day, and it is always like that, the boards, they change a little bit. You know, you pound them, you train with it, you know, you use it in your national competition, and then it gets a bit softer and a bit here, and it deforms a little bit, and suddenly you're like, it's not as good anymore. So what? You need another 5 boards to find a good one. So you need 10 boards to go through your season. It's not. And again, it's if that little tiny bit better in whatever, maybe jiving or maybe top speed, you can compensate it with something else. For example, if your board is like, let's say, it's maybe not the fastest, okay, then you trim your foot straps, you put your fastest fin, you put your mast track there where it's the fastest, then you trim your sail the fastest, you know, you can compensate it. So yeah.
I mean, that's a new world. I was going to say, there was a question I got earlier, which I wrote down, which was, what is the craziest board you've ever shaped? I mean, you must have had some, or what is the craziest board you've thought about shaping and not shaped? What's that world look like? Because you must have, I mean, you've done obviously the air inside stuff, which is crazy in its own right, but there's it's not that crazy. It kind of makes sense. But what's
The
the?
air inside, is not much. I mean, it's also about shape, but the air inside is more about construction. So that's definitely the craziest construction. But the craziest shape, well, back then, when I was still working for F2, we had all this. You know, F2 originally was named Fun and Function, and then we
Yeah,
had a new guy, and he was like, nah, shit, that's fucking fast.
yeah.
So
I
it was
always remember that. Actually.
everything is about speed, just everything about speed. So if it jives or not doesn't matter. It has to be the fastest. So that was the whole marketing. So of course we tried just fast and fast and fast and fast and faster, and then you have all these rumors and these ideas, and to get air under the board. Was I remember back then it was all about getting air under the board. If we could sail on air, you would be the fastest. And I kind of agree, yes, correct. But how you get there, and then how you have the air staying there, not just air for like a second and then you touch water again. So I made those crazy shapes with tubes and pipes, and I even had one. You know the soda club where you put your bottle of water and then you
Yes,
push the
Soda
button
Stream.
exactly. And I made a speedboard with that soda stream bottle with all the. I know, so many hours. And in the bottom, I had all. You know that table where you have like this, like a disc, and the
Oh,
table
air
had
hockey.
huh?
Air hockey.
Yeah, air hockey. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
the
you
air
have the
hockey.
thing, and then the disc is just flying on like an air cushion. So I made this whole bottom. I made all these tubes out of aluminium and put them in with the pipe going up, and then connected to this pressure bottle, and put like a lot of little tiny holes in it to create it. You know what? I never finished it because I was so tired of was looking at that board, and after all, I never finished it. It's actually still there, and I still need to drill the hole. I'm gonna do it one day. But
I'm
anyhow,
looking forward to it.
Those were the craziest boards I made back then when it came to how to get air under the board.
But you did have a speed board, didn't you? I remember seeing the channels. Was that
Yeah,
one? That
yeah,
was
yeah.
F2, wasn't it?
I had a board. This board had I took masts and basically punched those masts through the deck, and I had each side 3 holes and the fourth one in the tail, so 8 holes. Chopped all the masts off, but laminated the back, so I closed all the holes. And this board also had like massive double concave, I'm talking about, in the deck, just to make it really stiff. And it was impossible to do a jibe on it because it's like it's like a trap, like your feet got stuck in the holes, and it's just really horrible. But anyway, it was all about speed, right? So yeah, those were the craziest boards I made, and
Sounds
then
good.
yeah.
Okay, talking of holes, I've just seen a question come up here from Simon. Says, how critical are the cutouts at the back of a modern slalom board, and is there anything to watch out for when buying one?
Everything is critical. It's not just the cutouts, but let's say also the cutouts, they changed over the years. I'm just talking now. No, it's so difficult.
No,
I'm
it's all right. I've
talking.
got a funny story of you and Finian.
Sorry?
Yeah, you and Finian, when I see that question, I just think of Turkey, you and Finian arguing over a router, and Finian grabbed your router and was literally he basically had a new slalom board with the perfectly fine back on it and was just routering out the back
Yeah.
with you looking on. And it's just interesting because I've never seen that before. It's quite common, apparently. I didn't know that when you're testing.
Let's say when the cutout started, I remember this all went back with Roberts. I think Roberts from Canada, they had this kind of cut off tails to reduce the wetted surface, and also chopped tail with a little rubber flapper glued on. And this is where it started. And this is when I saw it also first time. I was like, oh, but then you stand in front of your shape and you're like, how do I make it? I make it like a triangle or round or straight or here or there or whatever. And I was like, you know what? And I was actually the first one putting those big PVC blocks straight into the tail, laminated all back. I went to the beach and said, you know what? I just start cutting on the beach and just try. And there were so many pictures of me in Fuerteventura. You know, when the high tide comes over,
Yeah.
and you have those little, let's say, sandy islands, and I had a few pallets on top of each other, and there was a generator and my router literally all the way around. It was all water, and there was this little, it looked so funny.
So what's the idea for the general person out there? You know, and for me as well, to be honest.
Okay.
What is the general concept of those cutouts in the tail?
The cutouts are completely related to the rest of the shape. For example, if you have a board which is already on its tail, so it's, let's say it's nice and free, you don't need very big cutouts. If you have a board which is a bit sticky, you need bigger cutouts. So depending on the screw rocker lines, depends on the outline, depends on the bottom shape, V, concave, double concave, and so on. You cannot look at the board and say, oh, that's a good board, that's a good tail cutout. It's not possible, because another board can do everything exactly the same, but it just feels completely different. They can be both. So two boards, different brands, complete different cutout concept. They can be both same speed. They can drive the same. They can plane the same, but they look completely different. So, yeah, it's a tough one with the cutouts. There's no.
Yeah, you got to try it.
You can't. You have to try. Look, anyway, I always say, before you buy anything, just try it. For sure, there's someone who has it, or at the beach, or at least talk to someone who has it and ask him how it goes, and so on and so on. But I generally feel like the cutouts these days, from most brands, they're a bit oversized. I know how it feels. I was a competitor myself, and every time you go testing, the fastest board is always the best one. I mean, for everyone.
Yeah.
But when as soon as this comes to a competition, this is where everybody said, "Oh, what have I done? Why did we choose that prototype?" Because when you're testing, it's just like 2-3 guys testing with each other. When you're at the competition, you have 8 guys, and they all want to win. And there's a start. If you're that tiny bit behind and you have the fastest board, but you don't have the drive, you just die. And if you want you back in the turbulence, warm, the wind, and the choppy waters, could be exactly the absolutely wrong choice of board, cutout, whatever. And that's why I always tried to test, even during competitions. Back then, in the early days, there was no production rules and stuff, so you could just chop and go and try again. And what I did a lot, we had the adjustable plates. So I just made the cutout as big as possible. I mean, pretty big, and put the plates in, and we start chopping the plates. Because we're cutting the plates, you just basically make 1,000 different cutouts.
Yeah.
And I remember with all our riders, everybody had some weird ideas how to chop the plate and screw it back in and try, and then you start learning more and more about the cutouts. But let's say in general, the fin is the rotation point of the board. Okay, when you start to cut cutouts behind the center of the fin box, this is where the board starts to lift. So imagine this is the fin, right?
Yeah.
If you start to cut behind, this is where it starts to tail walk. Okay.
Gotcha.
When you start to cut further forward, This is where the board drops again. The bigger you cut, the more slippery feeling you get, but you lose a lot of power on your fin because you're sailing a little bit sideways. The fin starts, the water running on the bottom against the fin, it gets compressed. So if you have a lot of area, nothing cut out, and even a small fin feels big because you have all this pressure.
I see.
As soon as you start cutting out, you're like, oh, I need a bigger fin. You start cutting out more. I'm like, oh, I need a bigger fin because you lose that power of the fin.
Interesting.
So, but again, back, I remember we did triangle cutouts where we left the rail as long as possible, because then you can put the board onto the leeward side, onto the rail. Now, a lot of people think, oh, yeah, right. If you cut out the side, it's easier to put the board onto the leeward side. But it's actually not true because the water runs on both sides of the fin. So, yes, if you cut out, the leeward side drops into the water, but the upwind side loses the lift. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you do a bigger cutout, you don't get the lift on the upwind side. So it's not easy. It's not easy with the cutout.
It's complicated, but I definitely learned a bit then, actually. It's quite interesting.
If you want to shape a board, if you don't know what to do with the cutouts, make a big hole, put big PVC block in, laminate it in, shape it all back. Do not have any cutouts. Go to the beach, start off, try, come back, cut more, go out again, come back, and you will immediately feel what it does to your shape.
Yeah.
To your bottom shape, to your scoop line. So everybody's
different. I didn't realize that's what you do, PVC blockers in the back, and then you just routed the PVC out. I get you. It's interesting. Yeah, makes sense.
Fastest. Okay. And also when you're done, when you feel like, you're not happy, it's easy. You just glue something back in, send it back and start again.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Another question from Steve Evans says, great boards and great support of windsurfing Western Australia. Top bloke. That's not a question, but we're going to put that in. We got Leonard saying, what are the key designs for early planing apart from width?
So early planing. I know I always make things a bit complicated, but it is actually complicated because what is planing? So early planing, you have, let's say, when you're standing, you give your first 1-2 pumps just to get up and going. This is your first planing. But is this all you want? Or because just the planing as let's say a free ride board. So definitely no cutouts, absolutely no cutouts. And almost, let's say, a monoconcave around in the, let's say, from your front foot to your back foot, somewhere there to the tail, but not too deep, because that gives you a lot of lift, because the water gets compressed in the center of the board. So imagine this is a monoconcave. If you run through the water like this, so the water from this side and from this side, they run through the center, and then in the center, you get like a lift. So let's say if you want to have a super early planing board, and this is really all you want, I would say have maybe a 2 millimeter single concave or an invert V, of course, as well, in the about under your back foot, and no cutouts. This is definitely where you're going to plane the earliest. But then once you're early planing and you feel like the board is stuck, you see free riders, they hooked in, they already have their feet in the strap, but they're not really playing. They're like in this, they're trying to get going, and they wiggle with their backhand and they go, but they can't stop wiggle because it's just they're kind of on a plane mode. But actually, let's how did you call back the like when you're on a dagger board, race board?
Yeah, on the rail.
Is it they call it planing, right? But this is not really plane. This is more like gliding. Do you know what I mean? Like
You mean when you're on the dagger board, railing upwind?
no. I'm just talking about the very long boards, 3 meter, whatever, with the dagger board. They also speak about planing, but I think there are two different planing. One is the planing when you kind of glide through the water. You feel like that you get that speed. And the other planing is like when you're literally like on top of the water, just slapping from one chop to the other, like what, let's say, fun boarding. And I know back then they call it planing, but I would call that gliding and then planing. So let's say for the gliding, for the earliest gliding, this is what you do. Just a little single concave in the tail and no cutouts. You get the earliest gliding and you just there, but you don't have the acceleration and you never really get onto certain speed when you feel like, oh, I'm on top of the water now and I really plane. So you need acceleration as well. So there, a longer board, a longer flat makes everything very calm and almost a bit sticky. So you're always in this glide mode the whole time. Even you hit the wind hole, you still glide. Or you do a jibe, the board just never stops. It just goes through the jibe like never stops. You shift yourself and it still keeps on gliding.
Obviously, rocker must play a part in that as well. Because I always, when I get a bad waveboard sometimes, or not a bad one, just not one for me, when the rocker's quite a lot and it feels like it's just pushing water. That's how I explain it to people. It's like, if you think of a board like that, if it's pushing, you can't. And once you get it up on top of the water, it's gone. But that first bit, if some people are quite heavy on their, they're quite heavy on their board, they don't get it to release. Again, that's a personal thing, but I definitely feel that.
The front of the board, you actually call scoop. So it's scoop going up. Why this video camera? I think I'm always
me too. It's the wrong way around.
Anyway, so the front of the board, let's say to your front foot, around somewhere there. This is whatever goes up. This is the scoop. Then let's say whatever is it's a hard one. Let's say between your feet to the tail, that's rocker. And whatever is, let's say, behind your foot or even behind the fin, you can call it tail kick.
Oh, okay.
So the scoop, yes, the scoop is important, but as you say, I have a hard time with this video camera. So you're right. If you have something flatter, I can do like this. What's wrong? If you have something like really scooped up, it shovels the water in front of you. If something is flatter, of course, the water runs nicely, flows nicely under the bottom, and it planes earlier. But you have to be careful if the scoop in the front is quite flat. If you have chop and wave, you start digging in. So you need a certain length, certain height. Let's say from the normal water surface, about 20. I mean, depends how fast you go again, and depends if it's flat water or not, and if you have cutouts. Because imagine you put 1 mil of tail kick in the last 10 centimeters, and you push now a board of 2.30 meters long. You push that tail down onto this 1 mil. The whole nose will come up about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like, I compare it a little bit when you're shooting. When you're shooting, on 300 meters. If right here, I just lift by 1 mil, 300 meter, I'm out of 5 meters. So with the board is similar. If you do that little tail kick right behind the fin, that can give you a lot of lift in the front. So you can
the
have
tail is super important.
Sorry?
The tail is, well, I mean, like everything's important, but the tail seems like it's very important to everything else.
Yes. Look, easy to explain. So imagine you see this. So imagine there, you see that little thing in the back.
Yeah.
So I put this here. So if I just put it in the back, see?
Good jump.
Try again. So if I just put the tail here, if I push it, you see how the front is lifting? See?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that little bit here in the back, that changes the whole nose up. But it's different. So if you want to have a very early planing board, it's better to have it a bit longer and a flat scoop in the front, so you don't shovel the wall in front of you. But of course, who wants to have a 2.50 meter waveboard? And nobody. These days,
there are some people out there.
What are your boards? 215, 220,
222.
Yeah. I remember with Skyboy, we went to 225, and it's too short. It's too short. I'm like, you will see one day it's going to be too long.
What is like? I mean, God, it's such a big topic, isn't it? When I get talking to you, I just realize how this whole thing is just crazy. We're going to probably have to get you back a few times because there's going to be so many questions that are not answered. Just because it's almost endless, isn't it? There's so many different things and different people, different conditions, different boards, different disciplines. And they
Absolutely
are all related, but they're all so different. It's mad,
and at the moment, I feel like the whole thing restarts again, because like for a while I was like, what can I shape? What can I try? But you can I can make a new free ride board. As I said before, it's not better. It just feels different.
Yeah.
So, but then I'm like, okay, this is Patrik brand. We have a certain feeling. This is when you speak about our boards, but let's say there's this JP and they have a different feeling. So every customer needs to find out a little bit what he likes. But it's not like I just shape a new board every year just to have a new feeling, because I don't want to have customers confused as well.
What is your feeling? What's your general like?
I like very balanced boards. I hate if I have, let's say, a real fast board and it doesn't jibe or it doesn't plane. I have a hard time, it's just, I really like balanced boards. So they do everything on a really, really high level, but they're nowhere the best, let's say, because if you want the best, you can trim everything else to that what you want. So if you come to a competition, let's say, I always speak about slalom because that's the easiest to explain, because wave sailing, there's so much about feeling. There's so much about, it's not about which waveboard is, let's say, the earliest planing, and it just depends where you are. If you're in silt and you don't have an early planing waveboard, you're dead. If you don't make it out before the big rocks come, you're stranded.
Yeah.
You can have the best waveboard in the world, turning and smooth and everything. If you don't make it out in silt, that's it. Your heat is gone. But then if you're somewhere in Hookip or in Australia, you have this super early planing board and you're like, wow, now sick. Yeah, well, on the wave, it's all stiff and you're like, and every turn looks a bit dodgy, So again, waveboards is like, what do you want? Where you're sailing? And but with the speedboard, with the slalom board, this is when I come, because you also have to understand you have to choose one board and you have to go through it the whole year through many different spots. From silt, onshore, offshore, sideshore, waves, whatever, choppy, crazy, to flat water Turkey. You remember? In Al-Chati, it was always so peaceful. It was always so flat, and then everything felt sticky, right? Remember?
Yeah.
We came up in the light wind with our 130, 140 liter boards every year. I remember, and after all, never used it. Never used it. I always had this 8.6 and 115 combo. I still every year brought my big board, and I never used it because it's just so sticky and just wouldn't do that because there's so much salt water in Alachati. And you really feel this on a big surface of board. You feel that drag of this sticky water somehow. Anyway, difficult, man,
Okay.
difficult. But let's
Well,
say,
this is
I would say shaping is a bit like cooking. You have a lot of ingredients. You have the pepper, the salt, the curry, the pepper, whatever. You have all the spices in there. And now you put a bit of this, bit of that, give it a taste. Okay, now I want a bit more this direction, and you put a bit of other spices in. Shaping is similar. So you can have narrow tail, wide tail, thin tail, thick tail, a lot of V, little v, monoconcave, double concave, and so on and so on. And once you understand what it's doing, but for example, a double concave in the nose area does something completely different than a double concave in the tail area. So, but once you understand all that, then you're like, okay, what do you want? You want a waveboard? Where are you sailing? What's your weight? How important is planing for you? How is this? How is that? And then you have all your templates and your ideas, and you can actually mix it together, and you can make the perfect
from the
board.
other side of that, advice to guys out there looking to buy boards, whatever. I think the biggest advice I give to people over the years is know what you want. And you only get that by sending a lot of boards and finding out the things that you like. Once you know that, what you're looking for, it's easy to come to a shaper and tell them. But until you know what you want, it's pretty impossible. Like, you've got to try a lot of stuff, and then you can play around with it afterwards. But you need something, I think anyway, me personally, that, like, I've got waveboards at the moment I really like. Yes, I could play around with different things, but on a basic level, I know exactly what I'm looking for. And that's, I think, the problem for the average guy out there most of the time. And you can tell me, because you're a shaper, so you must have people coming to you going, Patrik, what do I need? And you're like, well, it's a two-way thing.
You know what actually is a little bit, well, let's say it's a bit unfair. Unfair is a little bit when you have a brand, you make production boards. Obviously, those boards, they're going to be tested by somehow in the countries, and some publish these results. And when it comes to shaping a waveboard and you want to have the test winner, I know it sounds a bit funny, but almost if you make almost a bit, let's say a little bit like a slalom board, you already earn on most points, because early planing you got ticked because it's a slalom board. Your acceleration and top speed, upwind, and all that stuff, it's already tick, tick, tick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't get good points now in turning, but I know. I remember when I was shaping brands, and for some marketing manager, it's just so important to get the test winner.
Yeah.
And I remember I was shaping boards, and I was like, but this is not what it should be. You know what I mean? Like I was.
It's almost stacked the wrong way.
That's it.
They've got too many categories.
A waveboard which wasn't I mean, it was a waveboard, but all the ingredients was just most about performance rather than, let's say, the real nice feeling as a waveboard. And yes, it was super early planing, and it was accelerating, and it was controllable, and it jibed nice and everything. But on the wave, it was like, ugh. It was, you know, it
Well,
was
if you
just
keep it on the cooking theme, it's like
would
having
you?
loads of sugar and bad stuff, and it tastes amazing, but it's not very healthy. But there's only one mark for health, and there's lots of mark for all the other things. You know, I guess it's kind of
Yeah.
similar. All
It's
right, let's
all
have a look at some more. Go on.
yeah, sure.
Now, I was going to say more questions. I've just got a few coming in. Moke says, "What was your best team rider?" Ricardo? Question mark.
Yeah, what's the
This
best
is an
team
interesting
rider?
one.
Is it the best sailor or the best character?
Okay,
Or
I'm
is it
gonna
the
break
guy
it
who
down.
sells the most for you, or what's the best team rider? Look, the best team rider. I think they were all the best in something. But I think I am my only best team rider, completing most of the tick boxes, because do you know how it is? It's just like, after all, as a brand, what do you want? Sorry, but that's a business, and I want to sell boards. So if I have the world champion, but he's on the beach, or the grumpy guy, well, I'm not sure about it. You know, if I have a guy, oh, it's always funny and he's so nice and he's maybe 20th, whatever, but he's so always helpful on the beach and he has a lot of knowledge. Actually, he knows even about shaping. Like me back then, I was nowhere in PWA. I was like 30s. But I tell you, I was selling by far the most boards on the market for the brand I was sponsored at, because I knew what I was talking about and I was still on a good level. So all team rider, I mean, at the time you get the team rider in, this is where you believe, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what fits to us. If after a few years it doesn't match anymore, it's always, it's always a bit of game. It's a bit of money
Well, look at
game.
football.
It's yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing, but it's interesting you say that, because there might be some kids watching this, or potential, sponsored riders, and maybe you've got some advice for them, because I think it's quite important to come from, well, you're obviously a shaper, but you're a brand manager, effectively, well, the man behind the brand, not brand manager, I wouldn't say. You've got one of them as well.
Well,
But what
yeah.
advice would you say? Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know what I'm saying, but you know what I mean. You are the main man. You're going to make some big decisions.
I think the
What
best
are you
team
looking
rider is
for?
the one.
Go on.
I think the best team rider is the one who really understands his weakness and his strength, and clearly comes to the brand and say, "Listen, I don't like to talk at the beach to customers, and I don't like to give interviews, but you know what? I win everything. That's it."
Yeah.
And he's honest, and you can hire him, because it's you as a brand. You can promote him as he is, But if somebody comes and like, oh, I'm really good, and I do a lot of promotion, and I'm the best in media, it's just a lot of talk. And then when you have him, and then you're like, what? You're not the best, and you're not doing a lot of media, and this and that. So better to be honest with really what you like. Some riders like Dennis Miller came and said, Patrick, you know what? Competitions are nice, but it's all just competitions. But I love to travel. I do travel stories. I do this. I do that. Here we go. Travel stories and a lot of interviews and magazines and pages, and this is what he does. Does a lot with the kids and all that, and that's worth a lot. So, but he was honest straight away, because a team rider
How
is not.
about this? I've been thinking of a concept. You can tell me if it's a good concept. So, and it requires the person to have a bit of money in the first place. But my theory is, you go to a brand and you say, look, this is what I can do, blah, 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 blah. But you're only going to pay me at the end of the year for next year.
They will never do it.
They do a year, basically, and then so it's almost like a free year, even though you're paying them at the end. And then you can basically assess what they've done in the first year. So you'll already know what you're paying for the next year. Does that make sense? If you can get on that cycle, I've done that with quite a lot of with brands, you know, that I've worked with, because they don't trust people anymore because so many people have let them down and said, "Oh yeah, I can do this, do this." But that kind of works, doesn't it? Because then you can evaluate on what they've already done.
Yeah, but this is what's already happening. First, they come from some other brand, and you already know a little bit their value. So when they start with you, and then you go through a year, and the end of the year, or towards the end of the year, you already discuss the new contract. And the new contract you discuss on what based on what happened in this year. So I also had to talk a lot with our team riders, not because they don't deliver, because they could not deliver. There is no competition. There is COVID. There is no PWA events. There's nothing. And I'm like, guys, okay, well, what can I do? I mean, we need team riders. It's a brand, and it's what you do anyway. If you have products, it's good to, and it's also we like to do it, you know. And but we had to change. We really had to change all this the idea of a team rider just doing competition. And at the moment, what I'm working on is because I'm getting a bit older, you know. So, for example, all those foil slalom sails, I'm like, guys, I'm having a hard time to keep up, you know. Or freestyle equipment. I'm like, nah, my bones. That's it, guys. No more. So I need team riders who understand about development. And for me at the moment, that's the most important part, because competitions, where are they? Like what? 3 a year, if you know, and
Not like the old days, is it?
after all, for me, I'm still selling a product, and I want to sell a real good product. So at the moment, I have this one team rider, and I'm teaching him now about sales, not because I don't want it, or I don't know how to do it. It's just because I cannot keep up anymore, and I cannot feel what they feel on their level.
Are we talking Basti?
Well, Basti is one of them, and I told Basti, I said, Basti, what you do on a wing, I can't. I mean, I can go wingding, I do some wave and I do a little bit of jump, but I'm not at his level, and I cannot feel things as he feels. And then, but again, for him, he's not a shaper, he's not a sail designer, he's not, you know, he's a real good rider. How can he explain me what to change on the wing, or what to change on the foil on the board? So that's super hard, because, and that's why I'm trying to educate them almost towards, let's say, shaper or designer. Now then it's not like they want to be like the top designer, but when they understand how the board is made with the V and everything, and how much V is in that board, and about the sails and the wings, what's behind the design, how it's made, and what it does, then they have an easier time to actually communicate with me and explain me what they want.
I tell you what, interesting would be to hear from the people out there watching, what is the main influence on them on buying stuff? You know, what is it? I always, when I'm looking at trying to, it's very difficult for me to judge windsurfing because I'm so in the sport. I'm sponsored, I'm this, I'm that, you know, I know people. So I'm just not a good example. So when I look at buying a mountain bike, I judge what I do. When I buy a new surfboard, I judge what I do and think, well, that must be what other windsurfers are doing in windsurfing. So I do look at tests. I don't always have the best. It doesn't matter to me if it's the best. I look at the price. I go, oh, I can get that one cheap. Then I try and convince myself that it's good enough because the price is good. And again, it's interesting to hear from the guys out there what team riders do make a difference to them. You know, is it the guys, the local rippers on the beach who are talking to them, loaning gear, being super friendly and helpful? That has a massive effect, I would have thought. You know, local shops should have a massive effect, but we're getting less and less local shops. you know, I think, you know, trust in the shaper. I remember when I heard your first podcast with Matt Jack, I listened to that, and at the end I was like, I want to get a Patrik board. I was like, no, but it was genuine. I was like, bloody hell, because you feel that that guy you're listening to knows his stuff, which I think is also quite a big one.
Yeah, but
like
you
I
have,
said,
there you have to be very careful, because marketing, when you write a text about the, I mean, actually, Tina, right now, you know, we're making a new website with blah, blah, blah. So we have to put all the new products on and refresh everything. And then Tina is pushing me now. He needs the text, you know, the text. The thing is, when I write a text, I never, you can go through our website and you will never read like, it's the market leader and it's the whole those, I don't even, this is the best early planing board and the best fastest and the lightest. And if you read, every brand writes the same thing. So you're like, what the fuck, man? You know, and some even write they are the lightest boards. How can you even? Sorry, why? It's not true, but whatever. And also when it comes to their constructions, Jesus Christ. I'm a pro. This is my job. I read through some construction texts. I don't know how it's built. I see, seriously, it's so complicated, and they're using words and they mix them up and turn them around and this and this. And I'm like, all right, sounds good, but I have no idea how that board is built. Even me as a shaper, as a guy connected with the production, I cannot understand what they write, but it sounds awesome. And what?
Yeah, I mean, as a customer, the words like that don't make too much difference to me. I got to be honest. Like I'm more a testing type person.
There's only one thing you can do as a customer: try it.
Yeah, that's me.
You save a lot of talking. You save a lot of blah, whatever. You just get it on your feet. Try it out.
In an ideal world, we would. This is what I've been thinking about. This we really need test centers, don't we? That's the ideal situation where good conditions, or not even good conditions, just conditions, being able to get the board without having to drive too far and being able to test it and go back to back with testing other things. Because the problem is with testing it on one day and testing another board on another day, if they're not the same day. But again, that's life, isn't it? So I guess it's all.
Yeah, but it also depends a little bit what you want. I mean,
Yeah.
if I, for example, I want a mountain bike. I'm not necessarily going somewhere now. They have 10 different brands and everything, and I test one bike after the other because you know what? I'm not competing anyway. So
Yeah.
I go a little bit up and down and whatever. So I go to my friend has a mountain bike and say, come on, can you give me a ride? I want to try. So I borrow his. Go, I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't like that one. And then that's it. I'm not going to the next.
So
It's enough for what I need anyway. So I'm not going to find even better one.
So is that what the normal windsurfer is doing as well? Because that's what I struggle with. Because obviously I've been windsurfing since I was 9.
And you should.
I'm now 44. You too, you know, been windsurfing a long time. We've got feelings and things we want to feel. But does the normal windsurfer, is he like us picking an e-bike or something? You know, I get on it, I go, yeah, pretty good. Brakes work. It moves. I like the feel. There is a little bit of feel with certain engines with e-bikes, but is that what the normal guy who buys a windsurfing board is like? Do they try it and go, I think it's all right?
Yeah, but you feel if it's all right or not. I mean,
yeah, but that's what you just said with the mountain bike.
Also, you know, it's not like the thing is with mountain bike. Also, most like me, my mountain bike is like maybe 8 years old because you know it's not my main focus. But if somebody then wants to, I mean, how many chances you really have to test something? somewhere. If it's your friends, and we're at the beach, whatever, you have a good talk with someone, you can maybe ask, oh, can I try? Well, how do you feel? What do you think? Just try it out. Test.
Yeah.
I just saw another question there before. What was
Yeah.
that?
Which one? There's so many questions, Patrick. I won't lie to you. What I'll try and do is I'll go through them, and we're going to try and answer them as fast as possible. That might be impossible, but we're going to go rapid fire and see if we can do a couple. So Paul Van Bellen, will the price of production boards get too expensive for windsurfers? Where do you think this cost issue is heading? That's a pretty hard one to sum up quickly.
At the moment, guys, prices just go up. It's just, it all starts with the material supply chain, China, worldwide. Even if just that little thing is missing, even the next production cannot do it. And then the next, it's just, you can't, I mean, these days you must be happy if you get the board.
Yeah.
I mean, almost. So, price with the shipping costs and oil prices, and it's insane. At the moment, it just looks like goes up, and it's almost like the fuel prices. It just goes up, and we always try to absorb these prices as much as we can, but there's a limit, and we say, sorry guys, but we need to go up 10%.
Yeah.
And it will go up. It will go up. If you can buy now, sorry guys, but buy now. Seriously, I'm not joking.
Or maybe even save older boards.
Half a year from now, I think it's going to be much.
Yeah, inflation is coming.
Yeah.
Julian says, does it make sense to gently sand a fin or board to make it faster? I think they're talking about wet and dry, I guess. We're talking like, what sort of grit do you use? Is that a thing? Like 2000?
So a fin is different from a board, because the fin, let's say it's not always on the water. It always also comes out of the water every now and then. But let's say a fin cuts through the water all the time, while a board slides on top of the water, but also disconnects from the water when you go through the chop. So it always disconnects. So if the bottom surface of the board is shiny, let's say like a surfboard, polished, don't even buy it. Seriously, I mean, this is. I know there are some brands that have this polished bottom to see the beautiful materials. It's just sticky. It just sticks to it. Because imagine two windows. You put a bit of water. You put two windows on top of each other. There's no way you disconnect them. You can only slide it. But the windsurfing board, you hit the chop, you slide and disconnect. You have both. So imagine you have two sandpapers. You put water and put them on top of each other. So they never stuck to each other. But if the sandpaper is too rough, of course, like you have a drag. So let's say bottom of, I know. Now I have a lot of people that say, oh, Patrick, no way. But trust me, yes way. I'm fast. I was a fast speed sailor, not because of my size and my weight, because I was always the smallest. I was standing next to Björn, Finin, and Anton Albo, and I felt like tiny. My advantage was always gear, always.
Yeah.
Always. I had so much. Well, I still have. About my gear really is just always.
So if they were going to wet and dry, they wet and dry the board.
So the board, it doesn't matter wet or dry. The board, just sand it between 220 to not more than not 5. I will do 220, 320, not more. Don't even go to 400. Okay. And don't bother about wet and dry. Just dry, it's fine. Just give it a sand. And also don't bother about the directions. Length, sideways, round, it really doesn't matter. We tried everything, and it all works. But a fin is different. If you make a fin too rough, you feel the drag. And if it's too polished, too shiny, you know what I mean? Like it's also it feels weird. It sometimes even feels like you're spinning out. So the fins, I would do, let's say, a crisscross, 45, so this way and this way,
Yeah.
with, let's say, some guys go completely nuts with 1,600 and 2,000, but again, I personally feel like that's too fine,
Yeah.
and it gets draggy again. And I would probably 1,000, 800, 800, 800 probably,
Interesting. Because
800.
we're definitely seeing that with foils at the moment.
I know, but you have to be careful. I was in Silva Plana. I saw freaks, seriously.
I know.
2,000, 2,000, 2,500. Sending. And I'm like, really? Really? I mean, come on. I mean, they believe in it. Huh? They believe in it. They
Yeah.
fully believe in it. You have no chance to talk them out of it. No chance. But I agree. You have to be careful when the foils come out of production, just to make it look nice and also to hide a little bit the imperfections. They give it a spray paint. Some give it a shiny spray paint. I like a clear coat, but the clear coat is actually hydrophobic, means the water doesn't stick on it. The
Okay.
water trails off, and that's really no good. Not for fin and not for foils. It's There's a video from German guy. What's his name? Germany 7.
Nico Preen.
Nico Preen, exactly. Nico Preen. And he had actually a video about it, and this is exactly correct. You need to be careful if your foil is hydrophobic, mast and wings. You could, it just feels funny. If you go slow, it's okay, but if you go a certain speed, you just explode. You don't know why. You're like, what just happened?
Okay.
So the bottom of the board and the foils, fins, everything need to be hydrophile. Means the water needs to stick on it, because then you have like a water on water running. The first layer of water is slower because it's like a drag on the surface, but the next layer runs over the water. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Next question. What do you think about kinetic and Cobra manufacturing?
I know Kinetic and I know Cobra, of course, because I made Cobra. Look, after all, I don't think the production is the problem. I think the brand is the problem. If you want to do something cheap, you do it cheap. If you want to do something really high tech, and you do it high tech, because productions at the end, they do whatever you want because you pay for it. So I don't think the matter is the worry about which production a board comes out. It really matters of what the brand puts into the board.
Yeah, well, makes sense. Makes sense. We've got Mario saying, why don't you make boards in Europe so you can eliminate the shipping costs?
Oh man, Mario.
He tried.
I did. I still do. We have a production in Ukraine in 2015. The problem is, well, we're having a hard time right now. Yeah, look, the problem is the cost, low labor cost. It's always very difficult to, and after all, I see the problems in one factory in Asia. I see the problems in the factory in Ukraine. It always comes to the same problem, and this low paid salary.
Yeah.
So you have a good guy, and he's really good, and then suddenly just leaves, just goes somewhere else, and then you're like, oh, why are you leaving? Oh, yeah, I get a bit more money over there. But if you give him more money, then all these other guys, the other workers, they also want more money, and it's just not easy.
Yeah, difficult.
So
difficult.
and
it's the time it takes to make a board. That's the biggest problem, isn't it? It's the time it takes. It's the time it takes to make a board, which is realistically the problem. If you could cut down the time it took to make a board,
people cannot believe how time consuming a board is. If somebody, I know there are a lot of shapers that make a board under 40 hours. Of course you can. I can make a board in 25 hours, but I mean, come on. I don't put love in, and it's going to be all a bit wobbly and a bit here and a bit there. It's no problem. Moving, yeah, well, But if you want to make a nice board, sorry guys, 45 hours. If you put this nice job in, 45 hours. Now you can calculate yourself. If you have, depends in which country you live in, 45 hours, put this down. That's not even without materials. Then you know what the board costs. So yeah, it's hard. And that's not without shipping costs, without margins, without anything.
Yeah.
And also, if you want to sell them through a distributor network, if you want to have shops, you need distributors, you need shops, and then everybody wants to have a little bit of piece of the cake. Price is just like going up. If you sell direct, well, it's much easier. But if you sell direct, it's very hard to get the quantity sold on like worldwide, because you know, like, it's difficult. And to ship things, if you have shipboards, if you want to sell direct, where is your company based? Somewhere in Europe? Okay, how do you ship to America? How do you ship to Australia? Air freight, Jesus, it costs a bullet. It's very difficult.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. Another question: where do you see freestyle shapes going? And by the way, I have a current 93. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, we cannot deny that freestyle goes down a bit, but this is, I think there are two reasons. One, because I think there's no competition, so makes, I think it's worldwide a little bit harder. And I think a lot of people, the sport got a bit extreme, and it's hard to follow for most people. And a lot of I feel like a lot of customers, they try to find an alternative where they just have fun. And I feel like winging is taking a lot of people in, because as it is right now, most just do it to have fun. But I can see already now at the lookout at the event what they're doing, and I'm like, holy Christ! And it's already now
going crazy, isn't it?
So extreme that it's almost now already killing the sport. I feel a little bit, because I remember how it is when I started windsurfing. You know, I don't want to go to the beach and everybody's laughing at me. Yeah, you look at this guy, he doesn't even know how to do a jive and stuff. So you want to be kind of good, you know, in any sport. If you go play golf and you're the last, whatever, you know, it's not nice to be on the golf course, except you're with a few friends just doing a bit of drinks, then it's fun. But if you want to do sport like it, then so yeah, I think freestyling is hard at the moment. It's but the freestyle shapes, let's say freestyle shapes. I think also with the freestyle shapes, because there's no competitions for a long time, and a lot of PWA guys, they also had to find alternatives. Some go IQ foiling, some go winging now, and Coito and all these guys, and Amado, they you know. So who is pushing now to the next move? You know, who's, you know. So I feel like if nobody's pushing it, the shapes are also a little bit stuck, because what do we change, and for what, and how, where to? So
it's interesting I mean, this probably links into this next question a little bit, not with the winging, but what's the future of windsurfing? How will foiling and wing foiling change the sport? We're definitely seeing it. I'm seeing it here. Winging is capturing people from other places like surfing and stuff.
I mean, it's very simple. Where was the future of skiing when snowboarding came? Like, so I was skiing myself, and then snowboarding came, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And a few decades later, snowboarding and skiing came back up, because, for example, my son is 8 years old. So for a lot of these days, let's say if somebody's in his 20s now or 15, windsurfing is old school, right? So he wants to do winging. But my son will be 20 and say, winging is old school. And they go back, I don't know, you never know. Maybe they go back to windsurfing. and it becomes cool again. So sports always have their up and downs, and you can never tell, but for sure windsurfing will not die.
No.
Windsurfing will always be there. There are so many. I mean, here in Australia, I do actually quite a lot of winging because it's the beginning of the sport, and I'm a shaper and I'm a designer, and I want to understand what I'm doing, not just talk to the team rider and he says something and I'll just do it and then it's not good. So I want to feel it as well. And but guys, we have so much seaweed. Every time I'm like, I wish I just go back on my waveboard because I don't care seaweed. Just don't care. I ride a few waves and that's it. With the foil, man, seaweed here, seaweed there, and it's just pain. So where foiling goes nowhere when it's seaweed, wherever seaweed. What are the guys doing in those countries where they have a seaweed problem? They don't go foiling, they don't go winging, they go windsurfing.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because I said the same thing. People ask me, and I'm like, look, windsurfing is never going to disappear. It's not going to disappear. It might get smaller, it might get bigger, but it's going to be around. Might be less brands in the end. There might be, whatever. But I always say this: if you look at your local wave spot, do you want any more people on the water? The wave spot, you're like, not really. You can stick them on the lakes and stuff, but it's good. The winging is bringing people into that water sports arena. A lot of the windsurfing brands have winging gear. It's like supping. It helps the whole business. You can use funds to do little bits, but winging is definitely pulling people in 100%.
I organized an event here in Australia last season, and in Cervantes, and I was looking out there and just thinking like, we should have a PWA slalom event here because it's just so much fun. And no way you can use a foil because you're just going to hit the reef. You're not going to make it. And there's also some seaweed there, and then you're not going to make it. So not much seaweed, but with the reef and stuff, you won't. So it will be actually fun to have an event sponsor who has money and say, I want a slalom event. And then wherever his place, you can't use foil. That would be fun. Everybody comes up with their foil.
It does. I have to say, windy slalom racing takes some beating. Every time I've ever commented on a tricky windy slalom, for example, Portugal, when Viana was that windy day with a few little waves in there. We had obviously Fuerteventura every year, but every time Korea, when it was windy and tricky, man, it is some of the best, most exciting racing you will ever see.
Even for yourself doing it. I mean, I do both, but every time I'll go back on my slalom gear and I'm like, yes, baby. Yeah, that's, I'm like, I get goosebumps, like, yes, this is like, it's like rally vs
No, but it is.
Going around the circuit.
Full on. It's full on. It's amazing. What is this? We got so many questions. Like I said, we are going to have to probably do another one. We've already been going an hour and a half, and we're not even scraping the top. I'm looking for a board to use in 8 to 10 knots without using foil. Unfortunately, home spot is not so windy. 95 kilograms. Any suggestions, or should I foil?
Well, the question is a little bit if you don't mind to use very big sails. So of course I will go to Formula windsurfing in some countries. By the way, I got the email. They want us to reproduce Formula windsurfing boards because they really need them. I'm like, okay. What? And they say, guys, we don't have the water depth and all that, and we have light wind. I'm like, okay, true. So if you don't mind big sails, I would definitely go for Formula gear because you're always playing. You can go upwind, downwind, whatever. Otherwise, if it's the real big slalom boards, there are slalom boards with 90 centimeter wide. We also have one, 150 liter volume. You can use a 50 centimeter fin with whatever 9.6 square meter sail. That's good fun. Fast, early play.
Horses for courses, as they say. It's interesting to see different countries using Different places. What is your favorite board from Josh? What's the favorite board you've ever shaped? What's your one board you go, oh, I'm so proud of that board. That was mine. That was, you know, even if it was at the time, it might, looking back, it might be not the same. But what was the one where you went, I nailed it?
I think the one where I always look back, I'm like, how is it even possible? Is those tiny speedboards we made. Yeah. When there was because in Lüderitz, speedboards never went under 35 centimeters, even for women, for Karen. But I remember in the canal in Saint-Marie de la Mer, we made boards 28 centimeters wide. 28. It's tiny. And when I shaped that board, I'm like, I don't, you know, it's like tiny. It's all this small. And then you put your foot on it, and you're like, my foot is bad. The tail was, how much was the tail? 16 or 17 centimeters wide. Jeez. Tiny. And then you look at your foot and you look at the tail, and I'm like, how are you even able to start that thing? And it works. It works. Yeah. That was the most, yeah.
So the speedboard's your favorite one. Okay. What's the one you designed and, oh, I can't ask you that. And gone, oh God, that's a shocker.
What's the one?
What's the ugliest board you've designed but works?
Oh my God. The ugliest board I designed that works. I designed once a speedboard. When I even shaped it, I was like, Jesus Christ. And the idea was to go speed sailing in a neck tongue with seaweed. So basically, like a lot of seaweed, it's just the whole thing is just flooded. It's like grass flooded. The thing is, it breaks the water surface completely. There's not even a ripple. And I've seen kite surfers in there all the time with their twin tips. Of course, they don't care. And I was thinking, like, Jesus, if we could go in there and go speed sailing, you just sheet in and go. And I shaped that board with this. It was a kite fin. It was a kite, like a twin tip fin.
Yeah.
And I made this really long tail with this double concave, which should have an effect as a fin. But it was really long. Let's say that the foot strap was about this far off the back of the tail.
What's that?
So and super short. Super short. That board was, I think it was like 180 or something. And then, but a super wide nose, or like it looked like a spoon, because basically how you start, you cannot water start. There's no water. The water is about this deep. So how you start it? So I was basically running and just jumping on it. But it was not a problem, because even if you touch ground, because the fin didn't dig in, because it was like a kite. There was actually no fin almost.
Yeah.
So it's and that worked. I was actually quite fast on it, and I wanted to keep going. No, seriously, I really wanted to keep going behind this idea, because in France you have a lot of étangs. It's exactly like this. They are like, there's nothing. There's no chop, and you can run in any direction. You can put poles with video cameras. You can say, okay, the wind is this direction, let's move the pole a bit. You can walk through the pole, just move it, and you have a different angle. So you can have the perfect run anywhere.
So where is that board now?
It's still me in the shed in Switzerland.
I'd love to have a look in your shed. That should be a whole episode on its own. Patrik's shed in Switzerland. Oh, great. Let's have a look what we got. There's a three-parter here. It says, hello, Patrik. I always feel strange when I step from a freestyle board to a waveboard because of the foot straps are more in the back. I would like to have a waveboard shorter with the same distance between the mast foot and the straps.
Yeah, I had once.
Possible or a bad idea, Pete says.
No, that's possible. I made a few boards like this because I had a few friends. They were freestylers, and they always went to Morocco wave sailing, and they said exactly as I want a board where the master is way further back. And I think it's a different kind of wave board. I think there's the wave board, wave riding style like a surfer, where you don't use the sail almost, like, you know, like when you see some guys in Ukipa, when they really ride the board completely, they never use the sail. But actually the sail can be very useful when you want to have like more weight when you bottom turn in the front of the board. You know what I mean? When you want to drive the board. So when you lay down the sail, and when the mast track is a bit further forward, that helps actually. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rödiger is actually riding a little bit like this surfer style. He's like, you know what I mean? He's not like Campello throwing his weight forward,
It's got a very high boom,
down, and carve, full rail carve, bottom turn and straight up. They're more like always connected like a surfer onto the wave. They never like Jason Pollock is the same. He comes down the wave, almost sails away from the wave, does this cranky bottom turn, then comes straight up. While the other ones, they're always connecting, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
It's interesting actually you say that, because I've always liked that Ricardo style. I kind of, maybe because it comes from JP a bit, and then like you say, you see Bernd is different. His boom's up here. He's not pushing, so much, but he's surfing. You can see he's really light with the rig rather than driving. So very interesting actually.
So that's why Rödiger can also have shorter boards, because his whole thing, I think he has quite a wide stance, but his mast track is quite close to the front foot.
Yeah.
And then that's why he can have a shorter nose as well. And because he doesn't put so much weight forward, he doesn't need that longer board.
Yeah.
While Ricardo, when you make a too short board for Ricardo, it's just like
same as me. No, same as me. I know my style now, and it's exactly that. Those two. I mean, obviously, I'm not as good as Ricardo, but that's the same way I wave sail. And if my board isn't quite right, or if it's choppy, I'm so used to pushing hard that when it's choppy, you see guys like Burns and stuff easier managing it. They just, because they're not driving so hard on the board. Even though they're getting a drivey style, it's just a different way of doing it. There's less pressure.
So to make that board, that's absolutely possible. But don't really, like, let's say whatever comes from the tail to the back foot and from the back foot to the front foot, don't change that, because this is the area where you're planing and turn. So you can't change that much. But then from your front foot to the mast track, you can shorten that. And of course, from the mast track to the nose, you can shorten that too.
Okay.
That works. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Hi, Patrick. Do you think what do you think is going to be the next big development in windsurfing, from Tom?
I mean, it is happening right now, and it's foiling. Foiling is way not done. Foiling is like at the beginning. I mean, if you look now at the moment, where even the choice for the Defi, everybody's like, yeah, for sure. When it gets windy, we're going to use the fin.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Not that sure anymore, because if the wind shifts a little bit, you have to point that upwind a little bit more than normal. Foiling is killing it at the moment. This is so like, whoa.
And
boards play a big role. I know a lot of guys say, oh, foiling, boards is in the air, it doesn't matter. It's absolutely not true, because if you think about it, very safe, that's actually a funny one. Take your bicycle, take a 3 mil wood, just like a 3 mil wood sheet, whatever, like how you call it, the sheet that ply, whatever.
You mean that?
And then just 1 square meter. Drive with your bicycle and have that 1 square meter sheet with you, and try to hold it in the wind. It goes all over the place. It's really hard. So, and that's just 1 square meter. So you imagine now a board is at least 2 meters something, and you're sailing like this in foiling, where the wind always hits the deck. And that is a big problem, because I remember when I was foiling myself at the beginning and trying to set up my tail wing and front wing and position straps back forward. You always have this dolphin effect, right? You bit too much forward, it drops. Then you have to push back and it comes up. And I always, for a moment, for a long time, I always felt like my foil setup and my strap position, the master position, is not right. But what it was, because of we worried a lot for the the touchdowns when you touch down, and also when you do a tack, so you still have enough board length to do a fast tack. And our first foil boards had this chopped rail and like real square big nose. And then the deck was really flat to still have the board quite thin and light. But if you have now this flat deck, the air, it's just like a spoon and it's pulling your nose down. It's no, it's pushing your nose down.
Yeah.
So if there's a little bit of gust coming, it's pushing the nose down. So, but if your nose goes down, you start to push more in the back. You compensate with your body. So you try to lift it up. But when this strong gust is gone, you're still pushing it up. Then it comes up even more. And then you try to push it down again. And the stronger the wind, the faster, let's say, the shorter the period between gust, wind hole, gust, wind hole, gust, wind hole. In the light wind, whatever, 10 knots of wind, you have a gust coming, you can see it, how it's coming. You see the black thing on the wall, you see it's coming. Oh, yeah, it's about there. Oh, yeah, now it's hitting me. In 20, 30 knots, it's like gust, light. It's like, all the time. So as soon as we start chopping the nose, making the nose smaller, making the nose rounder, immediately we were like, what? I don't have this up and down anymore, or much less. And that was just because of the board. No, did not change anything on the phone.
What about that eagle thing, the Exocet? You've seen that? You must have seen that. It looks like a condor or something with a beak. It's like a foil board that looks like a eagle's
like
beak.
an American's Cup.
It looks a bit like that, yeah. Like, I don't know. I've seen that thing on the internet. I've never seen one in real life, but it looks quite funky.
I don't know how it's.
Okay. It sounds.
I've seen a lot of funny shapes, but you know what? What is it about anyway? Look. If you look at surfers, if you go into like a real free surfer shed, they have like 30 boards in there, everyone, and they never sell them. They have these super fishy short boards, then they have the long ones, and depending a little bit how they feel today, they look a little bit at the conditions, and they're like, I'm gonna take you out today, and they just pick that board just to have fun. So when it comes to foiling and board shaping, I've seen those weird foil boards actually, but it's actually fun. You know what I mean? It's like you're flying there and you're in the air and you have this thing under you, and it's just fun.
It's easier as well.
I don't know if it's easier. I haven't seen it.
Okay. Mike says, Patrick, what is your proposed fun board for bump and jump, like you mentioned? Good acceleration, fast control, good maneuverability out of your products for 18 knots plus. And where can I test one in Europe, he says?
So for our one, this is definitely the F Cross. This is F Cross. That particular shape, it's a free move board. Some call it freestyle wave, some call it F wave. No, not F wave. Mostly it's like a freestyle wave. And but anyway, our one is called F Cross. And well, the volume depends a little bit on your weight. We have 80, we have everything, 85, 95, 100. We have all the volumes. And that board does that board is the one, for example, when Gunnar was riding with us here in Margaret River, he was using the 102 liter F Cross, called freestyle wave back then anyway, similar shape, to go out main break all the time. He weighed like 105 kilos, and that was his wakeboard, and it worked. It worked really well. And at the same time, that board, you put a slalom fin in with 4 straps. I did it in a WA competition here in Western Australia, and man, I was so fast. I'm serious, I was so fast.
Is that the longer board you've got? Is that the one? Because I remember speaking to you guys in a Defi.
No, that's the free ride. Our free ride is a bit longer. But no, that's the F Cross is just normal bump and jump board, but it has a fast rocker line. You know how it is. If you want to do bump and jump, you want to do a bit speedy, you do this long jump, or you want to do a tight turn. And testing, whew, where testing depends on the country you're from. But if you go on just try to find a shop or a partner, and always boards around to test.
Yeah. A question about volume, just while you're talking about it. Maybe gives people some ideas of the volume distribution. So, like, let's say I'm 80 kilos. What's my big wave board or free ride? It's very difficult, isn't it? Like, just to give people kind of some ideas. Do you have a formula that it's like in surfing? There's like some sort of formula where you take something divided by 6, or is there anything like that in windsurfing available? No? I mean, I don't know. Like, I can only speak from my own personal point of view.
Okay. Look, volume is also a bit relative, but let's say as a one board doing it all, I would choose my body weight. That's it.
Yeah,
my body weight volume, and I would not count the weight of the rig.
Okay.
Because when you go out, there's always a little bit tiny wind, and that power in the sail is enough to, compensate the weight of the rig to get you going. So I have a 93 liter board, and I'm going everywhere in. I even put a 4.2 on it. I just don't like small waveboards anymore. I like that. I remember I loved that back in the day, but now with a 93 liter, I have one board, do it all, and that's good.
And that's wave equipment.
Sorry?
Wave equipment, that is just for people at home, just in case they're not. Yeah.
Funny wise, heavier guys use smaller boards than light guys. Because Karen, for example, her smallest board, and she never really, she has a 55 liter, she has a 60, whatever, and her weight is around 62, maybe 64, whatever. And but she always uses a 68 liter board, so more. And I remember always like 75 kilo guys, they used about 80 liter boards.
Yeah.
And when it comes to 95 kilogram guys, they always lose about 95 liter boards. I think there's a certain because the bigger the board, the wider the tail, the harder it really makes it to turn. While, let's say, the foot size of an adult is always similar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the leverage on the tail with your foot is always a bit similar. Your weight plays a role as well, but I think it's your foot length which is always around similar size. And
Okay. Question here. Any idea how many boards are sold annually worldwide from Ron?
Oh my goodness. I remember I knew a few years back before the pandemic. So it was about 50,000 boards per year worldwide. But now it's changed for sure.
Yeah.
Because well, it depends also what kind of boards. Only windsurf boards, because some guys maybe invest less in windsurfing now, but they're gonna buy a wingboard, wing dinging. And to be honest, I go wing dinging myself. I don't feel wing dinging too much different of windsurfing. I went kiting, and kiting for me was a completely different feeling than windsurfing. I always got pulled up the whole time, and I did not like that feeling. I had my harness always up there, and I hated it. Like if you're windsurfing, you want to have the harness low, right? You know, even the waist harness is just always a bit low.
Yeah.
Anyway, I always had it up here, and I didn't like that pull up feeling while winging. I mean, when I go winging upwind, I have the wings straight in front of me, almost like a windsurfing sail. So it feels very similar. So now I think that's a lot of customers, they maybe don't invest in a new windsurfing board right now, but they invest into a wingding board or something.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably still the same.
Bert says, guys, what about the thruster question combined with bigger wave boards like Starboard or OES Australia?
Now we go into a shaping thing where I like to shape new things, and I like to, when something is not working, I'm like, I gotta make it work. But you know what, guys? Honestly, I never in my life, I never made it. I've never made a stubby waveboard work well. And I did not hear of any brand who really has stubby where everybody's like, yes, that's the one. Sorry, when the whole stubby thing came, and it came from surfing, what was it? The Vanguard? No, not Vanguard.
What you call it? I think it was the first one.
Or the Vanguard, whatever, you know, some guys stubby, straight, parallel outline rails, and the tail, the tail fins are very close to the tail, or let's say the tail is chopped off. And I remember I made boards for Julien Taboulet. Remember Julien Taboulet? I made boards for Gran Canaria. Chop the tail, chop the nose, and chop. And then after so much chopping, and I look at this and I'm like, man. And I felt like, but they were still kind of working, but because the tail was chopped, you don't have that tail length anymore. You don't get that drive. You lose that drive. And anyway, when I looked at the surf video, I think it was a stab in the dark or something. How you call it?
Yeah, stab in the dark.
Yeah, when they test all these boards and there are no names on the boards and stuff like this, and there were the weird shapes. And then they compared the video when the guy is doing the bottom turn with that board, and then the bottom turn and cut back with the other board. And they were like, yeah, the stubby, look at it, so much better. And I looked at the video like, no, it's not. And that made me wonder, I'm like, you say, look at the video, how the stubby is much better. And you look at the video and it looks worse. So you're like, no, it's not true.
I will say,
I tried stubby, and I tried here, and I tried local lines and these and outlines and thin positions all over the place. Every time I stepped on it, I tried myself, different volumes, and my Karen never got it to work. And we never made a stubby because I was like, this is just a marketing thing. It's just a marketing thing. And now tell me where the stubbies are. Where are they?
Well, it's interesting. I've got friends who really like the stubby. Me personally, I've tried a lot. I've never found it. And I found what you actually said then. It was quite interesting. I found that space behind my back foot. I need that to drive. If I haven't got that, my bottom turn just doesn't do what I want it to do.
It doesn't. And you can
see. I haven't got the drive. So I've never bought. I tried lots, and I have certain conditions. It's kind of fun and playful, but consistency-wise, my normal board, I always think, yeah, I had fun on that, but I would have had as much fun on my other board, and in other conditions, I have more fun.
Exactly.
So I've never done it.
This is when I look at surfing competitions. I don't see anyone ever using a stubby when it comes to like a pro result competition. You know what I mean? They always use the same. I mean, you can look all their boards; they all look the same. They all have the same.
I'll tell you what I found in testing is visually, I think it looks worse. When you're on it, it can sometimes fool you that you're doing these amazing things. But whenever I've watched the video, I've been disappointed with the outcome, even though it felt, and I look at the turn of a normal board, and I don't know if it's the nose or whatever, the visual, but it never looked as good. And this is another point that you just brought up, which I haven't announced it yet, but I was going to be on the phone soon. Stab in the dark. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, stab in the dark is in surfing. let's say, for argument's sake, they take 10 shapers, they ask them to design a board for a certain criteria, and the board is white. You can't tell, there's just numbers on them. And then they give them to this so-called pro rider, and he takes them all and he picks a winner, you know, basically. I wanted to do that in windsurfing.
That's a winner not at one day. That's a winner over a long period and different spots, different ways.
So my idea is to ring you up, to ring Ola up, to ring Keith the Bull up, to ring Sebastian up, and I get made a certain board, or it could be a production sprayed white. I don't know. I haven't quite worked out exactly what you guys would be up for, because it's not as cheap as producing a surfboard, and you guys don't sell as many, so it's a bit more expensive. But my idea was, the first thought was 80-litre wakeboards for all-round conditions. We get 10 of them, we take them to Cape Town, we have a van with whatever it is on it, Stab in the Dark or whatever we come up with the name. And then these boards are for a windsurfing series on Windsurfing.TV, which I would be picking my favorite and a few other guys. But we'd also have them for random people to sign up to use. Now, they could pay like a €50 a day thing or something, just to put some money in the pot to help pay for the van and all this stuff. But they would then write down, or to camera, tell the camera their experiences on A board or B or C or D or whatever it is.
I like this idea, what you say, because you're involving more than just one people. If it would be just you, that would be a bit unfair, because the step in the dark, they never know who, or do they know who the rider will be?
No, they don't. They tell them a 6-foot rider is going to be surfing beach breaks and
but this is not fair, because this is so, you know, everybody has a different style, and then if you're lucky, you get exactly to know who it was, and then who it will be, and then you can make a board for that guy. Because for you, I will make a totally different board than I would make for Maciek, for example, because it's obvious. So, but what you say, it's actually pretty good, because you have more guys using the board, you know what I mean? So it's a big average.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, as a world wave board.
As a shaper, would you prefer it that I said to you? And again, I'm just looking at Tom's comment there, 80-litre wakeboard, haven't been on a sub 100-litre for 10 years. And again, it's difficult to get the right volume. So maybe 85 would be better, because it could be a big guy's small board, it could be a small guy's big board, and it could be a medium guy's all-round board. Anyway, as a shaper, if I came to you with that suggestion, what would you prefer to do? Shape a board? Like, would it be a Patrik Diethelm custom, or would it be better for you as a shaper to be putting your production board in? What I mean, because it is different, isn't it? It's maybe it's too easy to tell if it's just a production board. I don't know.
If I know where you test, if you say South Africa, I would already know what to do, because most, you know, I've been there many times, and I know a little bit. But if you would say, for example, Australia, well, then I would make a different board. So
I think
again,
Cape Town's a good spot for doing something like this, because it is kind of more real. You know, Oz on a good day at Nalu or Coronation, you can get away with certain things, and then Margaret River is a whole different ball game, and then you've got Esperance, which is another ball. You know. No,
but I could give you production board, actually.
So okay,
I would tweak it. I would tweak it a little bit. I would tweak it a little bit. Yeah, I will tweak it a little bit.
So from your point of view, is that a possibility for other brands to get on board?
I tell you where I would tweak it, because the thing is, again, to get a good result, or let's say a better result in the surf magazine, early planning is always very important. Early planning, acceleration, and so I'll say our boards, our wave boards, are always direction a little bit more performance, rather than having like this, wow, that's a cool wave board, right? Because how many riders, how many wave sailors need the performance wave sailing board or the real cool wave sailing board? And I tell you what, most people struggle planing, getting to the break, getting over the wide water, catch the waves, and so on and so on. So for as a production board, pure production board for like, let's say big average, I always, when I shape, I put all the details more towards performance. But if I would make a board where I know that you and guys like you know, like you don't have problem planing and going upwind and all that, so I would tweak it a little bit more like this nice wave board.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's why I want normal wave sailers. I mean, I'm kind of normal. I'm not Marcelo.
Yeah, but you're not. Yeah, but still.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. I definitely see myself compared to other people, and that's what I was saying to you about the scoop rocker. For me, or getting it off the rocker, that little twicky point, I can get it off that quite quickly. And I see other people, if they're not as mobile, they're not as, and you see them they're just sticking. And there's certain boards that people should just probably never buy, you know. But anyway, I think we should wrap it up there. I know there's loads of unanswered questions, but this should be a regular feature. I know you're going off to Thailand now for 3 weeks, 4 weeks in your cave.
2 weeks,
yeah. So, but we're going to do it with different, we're going to do it with team riders, brand managers. We're going to try and do it with everyone else. It's going to be in conjunction with the normal podcast, which Matt Check does. So there we go. Patrik, thank you. Pleasure as always.
You're welcome.
Questions.
Otherwise, you have to do it more often, but shorter.
Yeah, that's what I will do. I'm guilty of going too long, and I know you are as well. Because the problem is, you get 5 questions. That's an hour. One question could be half an hour.
Yeah, but you know, it's also good because it's never ending. It is never ending. You can talk all day with it, all day about it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Watch this space. All right, mate. I'll let you go. It's probably pretty late there in WA. So
it's actually 11. It's okay.
Oh, early night.
All right.
All right. Cool. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Will do. Okay, so there you go. Patrik Diethelm, massive thanks to him for coming in and doing that. This is a kind of a new concept. It did go on a bit longer than I expected, or I kind of had a sneaky suspicion that would happen. But let me know if you like this sort of concept and give me some other ideas. I mean, like I said at the beginning, this is, you know, ask a speed sailor, ask a slalom sailor, it could be ask a weekend warrior. You know, one of you guys at home could be coming in and just talking through. But let me know sort of who you'd like to see. It's going to be live, and we're going to do it, you know, we're going to mingle it in with the normal podcast from Magic. So if you do like this content, you want to keep seeing it, subscribe to the channel, give us a like, leave us a comment and all that good stuff. Lots more coming up, and we'll see you for the next one. Let me sign out.